Well, hello, good people. We haven't spoken. A happy New Year for all. We haven't spoken in a while. Anyway, today we have a nice article about the booksellers that set up their stalls by the rivers of Paris. And there's one of them. His name is Jerome Callai. And he wants to make it where they have a certain status, these booksellers by the stalls of Paris, where they have certain statutes, and they want to improve conditions for them, so that it'll improve the culture, the bibliographic culture in Paris, in France. Anyway, let's get to and this way they'll be able to sell their books in a better way, because otherwise they have to sell trinkets and things like that. He wants to try to have it where if they have five boxes, at least 4 of them should be books and 1 should be trinkets. Anyway, let's get to the article itself. Let's go on. Let's get to the article. The Storied bookstalls of Paris fight for survival. This is Booquinista. They're called Booquinistas along the Seine River. Seek protection as intangible heritage. Here's the man we're talking about. Jerome Callai sets up his bookstall near Paris, Pont-Neuf. He is leading an effort to preserve the literary character of the stalls. By Sam Schechner. Jerome Callai has been selling used books from his green kiosk near the Pont-Neuf bridge in Paris for nearly 3 decades. These days, he says, passers-by would rather fiddle with their smartphones than browse his wares. Books have been sold from wooden cases perched along the banks of the River Seine for centuries. In perhaps the most celebrated display of the country's bibliophile tradition. But now, even France is falling out of love with the printed page. The Internet is forcing the closure of bricks and mortar bookstores across the country. Paris's open-air booksellers, icons of the city and its reading culture, are also struggling to adjust. Mr. Callai's and the city's other 200 some riverfront bookmongers or booquinistas find themselves at a crossroads. Some have donned the mantle of free market realists, pushing aside some of their books to make room for more profitable tourist knickknacks, like some have donned the mantle of free market realists, pushing aside some of their books to make room for more profitable tourist knickknacks like I'll read it. Like Mona Lisa magnets, baguette-shaped bottle openers, and Eiffel Tower keychains. For his part, Mr. Callai hopes to arrest the march of the market with a classically French approach, an appeal for conservation. He wants his profession recognized by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, as an, quote, intangible cultural heritage, like Belgian beer, Mongolian calligraphy, and Brazilian samba. Such recognition, he says, would encourage the stricter application of rules, limiting what the Booquinistas can sell. The first big test for Mr. Callai's legislative comes on October 1st, when the committee at France's Culture Ministry is set to consider new applications for France's National Intangible Heritage List, including Mr. Callai's 24-page submission. Quote, "We are integral to the soul of the city," said Mr. Callai, a former classical double bassist who has been buying used books since he was a child. Quote, "If we don't protect our profession, there will only be souvenir stands on the riverfront. We will be replaced by miniature Eiffel Towers." The profession traces its existence back to at least the 17th century. By 1723, France's Dictionary of Commerce described, quote, "poor booksellers displaying their wares along the Pont Neuf." The practice spread, and in the late 19th century, Paris authorities began letting sellers leave book crates on the riverside parapet overnight for a small fee. Today, the city licenses the Booquinistas 28-foot plots for free, provided the booksellers agree, among other things, to run their stalls personally at least 3 days a week. The mere existence of an open-air book market in central Paris is a testament to the written word's place at the heart of French culture. A century ago, foreign writers such as James Joyce and Ernest Hemingway flocked to the city, where they found an early audience for their seminal works. French teachers still have their students recite texts from memory, and novelist Victor Hugo remains a national hero. Here is Jerome Callai, sets up his bookstall near Paris.He. He's leading an effort to preserve the literary character of the stalls. Let's get back now. In 2017, the French brought nearly twice as many printed books per capita as Americans, according to a comparison of sales figures from market researchers GFK and book tracker NPD Bookscan. On the riverfront, the titles for sale range from the controversial Michel Houellebecq novel Submission to a 1951 edition of the children's classics Le Petit Prince. Pascal Corso, a Booquinista who recently displayed an 1859 book called Probity Rewarded with a gold embossed cover, says that customers, even ones who don't read French, often make purchases to decorate their bookshelves. Here, this is a sample of some of the other items that are sold. Some Booquinistas have given magnets and other souvenir trinkets a significant share of their display space. Okay. Let's get back now. But the ground is shifting. While retail sales of printed books have ticked upward in the U.S., sales in France have fallen 7.3% from their latest peak in 2012 to just under 300 million copies in 2017, according to GFK France. People increasingly purchase even their physical books online, accounting for 20% of the total in 2017, up from 10% in 2009. According to figures from the French Cultural Ministry. In Paris, the number of bookstores, while high by U.S. standards, have fallen by one-third since 2000 to 703 last year, according to the Paris Urbanism Agency. With no rent to pay, Booquinistas are in some ways insulated from the fallout. Their ranks haven't significantly thinned, but some stalls open less frequently, and the punishing market pressures are forcing others to change how they do business. Declining sales caused Francis Robert, a 39-year veteran of the trade, to devote one of his 4 crates overlooking the scene to selling magnets, keychains, and Eiffel Tower statues. The trinkets generate 75% of his profits. It's more than a crisis, it's a reality, he said as he sold a magnet to a passerby. Quote, to save the books, we need to sell tourism. Mr. Callai has resisted hawking tourist souvenirs, but in his best months, his revenue is roughly equivalent to France's minimum wage, just over 1,500 euros, that's $1,730. In a bad month, he says, he might bring in less than 500 euros, from which he has to cover expenses like his merchandise and Social Security taxes. Mr. Callai became a booquinista instead of musician, he said, because he didn't want to have a boss anymore. He can get by because he and his wife, a sculptor, own their apartment across the river in the heart of Paris. She largely supports the couple. Quote, the biggest luxury is freedom, said the wild-haired Mr. Callai, noting that he had recently opened late to take in an exhibit first at the Pompidou Center. UNESCO has recognized Paris's riverfront as part of the world's cultural heritage since 1991. But Mr. Callai says that enshrining the status of booquinistas would encourage city authorities to enforce more strictly the rules that limit the vendor's display of non-printed material to 1 box out of 4. He also wants the city to allow bigger stalls and provide better lighting to let the booquinistas stay open later in the evening. Not everyone agrees with Mr. Callai's call for purity. Mr. Robert argues that curtailing souvenir sales could drive many booquinistas out of business. We want to be hybrids, he said. Being on a list won't keep us alive. Getting recognized by UNESCO could take years. Since 2015, the body has limited countries to nominating only one candidate for the list every 2 years, leading to a backlog. It isn't clear how much help a UNESCO designation would give booquinistas. Intangible heritage listings don't create legal obligations for governments. But Mr. Callai, who insists he isn't out to stop all sale of tourist goods, says that a listing would help to reinforce the literary roots of his profession. Booquinistas have a good shot, eventually, of at least making it onto France's list. Quote, look at the number of films in which booquinistas are in the backdrop. Look at the number of photographs of paintings, said Isabelle Chave, a chief heritage curator at the French Culture Ministry. Quote, we have very tangible proof of their impact on Paris. So here we have once more Jerome Callai. Jerome Callai at his bookshop at Port Pont-Neuf. He's leading the efforts to preserve the literary character of the stalls. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Take care. See you again next time. Thank you.